Hello, and thanks for stopping by the Old Plank Woodworks. So for some time, I've wanted to build a Union Jack flag from McLean Lumber. Union Jack flag is the flag of Great Britain, and I've thought about this on and off say for quite some time, and finally had a few days in the shop where I had no projects outstanding, and I had an opportunity to get in and get cracking on it. So I'll leave a link in the description below with the template. It can be found, but I'm just basically measuring carefully and laying out the lines here to ensure that we have a good reference point for the layout and something we can work on. And this is going to be 30 inches wide by 15 inches tall. So the next thing to do was basically to run the stock that I was going to use for the flag through the trusty lunchbox planer. This beauty's about 20 years old, but it still runs well. Just keep some fresh knives on hand and it'll be fantastic. The wood we're going to work with is red heart, is maple and oak. And obviously there's a lot of stuff to clean up afterwards. But we've got all those three pieces of wood, all the three types of wood to the same thickness. Then we have the red heart, and that is the maple, and then finally the white oak. So first thing we start working on is the main horizontal vertical cross, the red cross, which is the cross of St. George. The Union flag is actually comprised of three different flags. The cross of St. George is a red cross on a white background, which represents England. The Scottish saltire, or the cross of St. Andrews, which is a white diagonal, a blue background, and then the cross of St. Patrick of Northern Ireland, which is a red diagonal on a white background. So it's pretty critical marking out these first few pieces, getting them exactly set up on the layout lines, because everything else for the rest of this flag is based off of this first initial red cross. So we're just ripping down some of the maple to use for the next part of the build, which is the white boundary immediately after the red cross. It's great when you're doing these projects. Every once in a while you'll have kind of an aha moment, and it was right after I did this I realized having these pieces cut to exact length wasn't critical, because they hang over, it's no big deal. I can cut them flush, and I was going to run around the entire thing with a flush trim router anyway, so it took a little bit of stress. Here we're just ripping the pieces for the red diagonals, the St. Patrick's cross, and we're cutting the right angles using the Inco gauge here, Incomita gauge. If you look carefully at the Union Jack, on the red diagonals, the two white boundaries that are either side, one is thicker than the other. And this is how you identify how the flag is oriented correctly. If you're looking at the flag the right way up, then in the bottom right quadrant, the thicker white strip is on the bottom, below the red diagonal, and the skinnier, the thinner white strip is above. That's where we've got two pieces of maple cut different thicknesses. So now we're going to start actually assembling. I am going to use some pins to help hold this in place, but the main strength of the piece is going to come from obviously a decent amount of glue. And this Titebond 3 gives you a pretty good amount of drying time, so you can finesse things as needed. Not a lot of that really needed here because we had the layout lines all set up. The most important thing was to ensure that everything was square and these first initial 3 pieces went in good square order, because everything references off of those 3 pieces. What I also made sure to do here was ensure we had not just good glue on the underside where the wood was going to attach to the final sub-base, but also on the side where the maple there attached to the, butted up against the red heart, because obviously there's a lot of joints in the places in this piece where 2 different kinds of wood match together, and wood's going to move over time. And I just didn't want to have any gaps occur between the 2 different colors of wood as I put them together. So making sure we had the sides glued as well was going to make for a much stronger setup. This process really flowed once you just kind of get into the rhythm of putting the pieces in. It was very simple just to do one after the other after the other. You got the layout lines, it's all set up. Just a case of taking your time, making sure everything goes in nicely and is aligned properly, and then securing it with the pins. A few of these pieces did need a little bit of finessing. That's why I'm using the chisel here to kind of just pare down real quick, shave a little bit off the end, just to ensure a really good joint in those diagonal parts at the very center there. I think it's about this point of the project I was looking forward to seeing the finished article, and actually felt that the plan I come up with was going to come to fruition as I intended. And you can see where I've let these pieces hang over the edge. Very easy to trim those up afterwards with a saw, and then cut them flush with the router trim bit installed into my handheld router. Using Nature's Own glue spreader there, your index finger. This is when having a sharp chisel really pays dividends. This red heart, incidentally, all this wood came off of different shipping pallets and shipping crates. A friend of mine found this red heart on a specific pallet one time, and knows that I like working with reclaimed wood and unusual woods, and so it was good enough to plug it on side at his work and have me come pick it up. So it's been sitting in the shop for probably about 2 years now, just waiting for a decent project, and this seemed like as good a project as any to use it on. So really excited the fact that I was able to use it on the flag project, and the fact that it is reclaimed, and it's got all the nail holes and characteristics you'd expect to come from a piece of punky wood that was a pallet at one point. Now we're just working up the oak pieces, which is the representative of the blue, and I've got them all dry fitted here. There was a few areas on the flag at this point where the certain parts were proud of certain pieces of wood were proud and sticking up over others, and so rather than have an extensive period of sanding or planing, I'm actually shimming some of these areas with some old business cards that raise up the piece. Plenty of glue surface area, so I'm not worried about anything failing, and almost wallpaper and no shims underneath. But I don't have a big drum sander, so I'm not able to run this through a sander like that. So the amount of sanding, if I can cut it down at the end of the day, is worth doing. So that's why we're using these card shims here. And again, making sure I get plenty of glue in there, not just on the plywood, but also on those side edge pieces of the maple where that oak is going to fit into. And attach it with a few pins, just hold it in place while the glue sets up. So you can see here I've cut all the edge, all the excess over the edges has been cut off, and I have already run the handheld router with a flush trim bit around the edges to clean those up. And now we're just going through the sanding process with the Vertex sander here, starting at 110, or excuse me, 120, and then working my way up to 220 as the final grit. And just really making sure that none of the edges where the two woods meet were proud of one another, so that they're nice and flush. You can see some of the nail holes in there. We've left those. We haven't filled those at all. The majority of my projects I like to finish with this Briarwax project, as you probably can guess, with a big old gallon of the stuff sitting on the bench top there. I like Briarwax for a number of reasons. This specific blend is I believe the rustic pine or the antique pine, I think they call it. And it works so good on a lot of different woods, not just on pine. It's forgiving. You can put a bunch on. You need a lot of elbow grease to rub it and get the buff out the shine on it. But I really like the way it makes wood look old, and that's what I was going for with this project. $64 million question as I've been doing this project is, how am I going to frame it at the end? I didn't want to have exposed plywood, and I knew I wanted to wrap it in some kind of frame. So what kind of wood, what color wood did I want to do that with? Didn't want to match any of the three woods that I've used in the project up to that point. So we settled on some Peruvian walnut from the local hardware store here in Olympia. And that's what we've got here. And I'm just milling up some frame stock real quick by using the table saw to cut erratic. The front profile of this frame stock is 3/4 thick, it's 3/4 wide, and then the overall height of the frame, back to front, it's about 1.5 inches. So that's what we've got here. We're just cutting these rabbets out so that we can make our frame up, and then fit the finished flag into the frame. Make a lot of frame stock this way, finishing up with a table saw rather than running through out a bit. It's just a cleaner cut. And it's a quicker process. So again, using the stop block on the chop saw to make sure we get the frame sides, the length and the width exactly the same. 2 pieces to the length, 2 pieces to the width, which is going to make glue up nice and easy. And the width pieces here, and now the length pieces. When it's time for the glue up, I'm not using any metal fasteners. I'm just using glue and a good clamp for a couple hours to help the glue set. And I love these Bessey band clamps. I use them. I make a lot of mirror frames, picture frames, and stuff like that. And these clamps are great for small, 3x5 frames, all the way up to huge. I think I've done up to like 50 by 30 size frames with these clamps, and they're fantastic. They allow you to still move the wood a little bit, and but at the same time, I some good clamp compression to make sure that you get decent results. Obviously here the frame is glued up, glue's gone off, and we are just giving the back, the side, and the front good sanding, and with the 120 up to 220 grit. Improving walnut, one of the reasons I like it is it's very universal color throughout. I love working with North American walnut too, and the different color contrasts on that, but if you're looking for something that's very universal, this Peruvian walnut is going to do that for you. And it's got the same great smell when you cut it or sand it too. Absolutely love this one. The sanded has kind of got that kind of almost like I say grayish, but it was a lighter brown color. And then as soon as we put the finish on it, that grain is just going to pop, and it's going to look fantastic. So the flag just sits inside the frame like that, and then we just secure it with a few brads on each side. Obviously, we fill those nail holes with some wood filler, give it a final sanding, and then it'll be ready to get waxed on the frame. And here we go. And I love the way that Peruvian just pops. Nice dark, kind of looks like a dark coffee color to it, and it is consistent throughout. And I like the way it contrasts with the woods we use for the flag too, so I was pretty happy with that selection. At this point, I was trying to figure out how I was going to display it. Was it going to freestand? Was it going to hang? Ultimately, I wanted to put this on the wall, so we did move forward and put some hanging hardware on it to enable us to hang it as we want to display it in our office. And it's pretty heavy. It's not terribly heavy. I'd imagine about 12, 15 pounds total. Again, just a good amount of Bry Wax. I use a brush when I'm doing Bry Wax that's been clipped down to about half. It's like the bristle's about half the length that it came from the store. I just like that kind of a little bit more firm brush to be able to work the wax into any kind of grains or nail holes. So here we're doing the hanging hardware. Let's say because it's around about 12, 15 pounds in weight, I'm going to go with let's say industrial hanging hardware, but just good quality hanging hardware that I know is going to stand up to the job right here. We're using a braided picture hanging wire that when we string one end, we'll then basically twist it before we hit it around the other loop, and then just cut off the excess, having properly strung that, and that's going to hang nicely and last forever. And there you have it, finished project, hanging pride of place in the office. Super happy with the way it came out, and I look forward to making some more of these, hopefully. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, share it. It means a lot. And leave me any comments below. Love to hear what you think. Thanks again.